Yeah. Yo, pull up a chair, let the real talk begin. Faith on the table where the brothers lock in. Life gets heavy, but we stand our ground. Truth in the room when the circle comes round. No mask, no front, just real man here. Talking about faith through the doubt and the fear. From the grind of the week to the lessons we share. Welcome to the men's round table, pull up a chair. Men's round table series, step inside. Real men, real faith where the truths collide. Voices at the table where the stories get shared. Welcome to the men's round table, pull up a chair.
At some point, almost everyone asks, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing next? Careers change, priorities shift, and sometimes the person you're becoming no longer fits the life you built. Today's guest has more than 30 years of experience across business, media, nonprofit startups, entrepreneurship, and has the social proof of helping other people navigate changes through coaching, books, and his financial expertise, as well as his podcast, Create Your New Normal. Our guest today is Anthony Quinones in the house with us. Anthony, how are you, man?
I'm great. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure's mine. Thanks for having me here. All right. So let's go ahead and jump in, man. So you got a lot that you talk about that is near and dear to my heart. So I'll try to use the time we have together wisely. Hopefully, I'll do a good job with that.
All right.
But you talk a lot about reinvention, and I really believe in that. I guess because I've been through a lot of hard things. And I've been in different genres, business circles, ministry, spiritual circles, etc. So I kind of have been around a little bit. I'm kind of one of those jack of all trades kind of guys, I guess. And I've seen you, when I would say you study and you coach people through major life transitions. What happens from an internal standpoint before somebody realizes, you know what, it's time for a reframing or reinvention? What kind of signs do you see happen first?
Well, unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's getting fired or laid off. And when we look at our upbringing, you know, we were brought up in the 40, 50, 40 era, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year for 40 years. And then you get the gold pension. I always say gold pension. You get the pension and the gold watch and the handshake, and off you go. And everything that we've learned is geared to getting a degree in a particular major and working for another 40, 50 years, as long as you don't do anything stupid, as long as you don't, do anything crazy, you're pretty much guaranteed that. And that no longer exists. That no longer works. So unfortunately, that's one of the main reasons why people feel the need to reinvent themselves. And then the other group of people, I guess, is people that see that whatever they're doing is not working. So they prepare ahead of time for reinvention so that they don't have to reinvent because they have to. They reinvent because they want to. They want some sort of fulfillment in their life, and they want to spend the rest of their life doing something meaningful and fun.
Makes sense, man. This show is a sister to our Men's Roundtable Series podcast. Every Thursday night at 7 o'clock, we have men from around the country, even around the world a little bit, that are jumping into that safe space to talk about men's issues. One of the biggest ones we talk about almost on a weekly basis is identity. I know you deal with that because you got a lot of folks that define themselves by their job title, by their accomplishment, how much income, how much money they bring in to the household, being a breadwinner and a provider. But what do you think is harder about changing identity than changing your career?
I think it's what you said. It's you identify yourself with your job and all the other things you mentioned, money you make. As much as we tell ourselves that we are more than our job, we really are our job. You know, that's what we identify with. I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm an accountant, I'm a flight attendant. At an early age, those things become attached to us. You know, like when you say doctor, it's doctor in your last name. Lawyer, your last name, Esquire. So it's attached to you at the hip from a very young age. And so what we got to do is we got to separate ourselves. Our identity has to be more than just our job. And what I was thinking the other day is, you know, when you think of identity, true identity is who are you when all those things are taken away? And when you lose your job, when you lose your house, you know, are you still a father? Are you still a husband? Are you still an impactful man in the community? These are the things that really define us at the core. Now, all these other things we talk about, job, money, income, those things can be taken away, but they become a part of us at a very young age. So we have to work hard to separate ourselves from those things because we are more than those things.
It makes a lot of sense, and that's going to be a great piggyback to my next question for you, Anthony.
Mhm.
One of the things I think that I've heard from people, whether it be in a coaching session or even just in random conversation, people fear the idea of reinventing because they feel like they have to start from scratch, and they're starting from zero. But I believe that you have a different insight into what value past experiences have. What would you say to somebody who's listening who may have that same challenge? What do you say to them?
Well, you may have to take a step back, but you don't have to start from step zero. So, for example, I think of a story in the Bible, David and Goliath. David had never killed a soldier in his life, but he had protected sheep up until that point. And as we know the story, soldiers didn't want to fight, so somebody had to. And so David stepped in, and he stepped in, with a lot of faith. He believed in that God would take care of him, but he also looked at his past victories. He protected sheep, and he figured if he could protect sheep, he could use the same things to defeat this giant. So there are a lot of things in your past that you've achieved that you can use in your next life. I always say that reinvention is not starting over, but it's starting from experience. So there are things in your past that you can use for your next, for your reinvention. And really, when you think about reinvention, a lot of times we say, okay, I want to reinvent myself because you've done something related to that. I have a friend who became a chef because he would do refreshments at his local Bible discussion group. And so it helped him to move into that. There are a lot of examples, they can come up with of people who have taken what they've learned and moved it into another area.
Oh, I love that. I've made some of those moves too. In the culinary world, in the government, I definitely can relate, man. You talk about a framework that you created. I think it's called the 5 S's of Reinvention. How would that help with somebody who's, especially the men that are watching, this is an all-male audience for the most part. How would that help for the men that are looking to start a new chapter? How would you frame that for them?
Yeah, from my experience, I believe this is helpful in pretty much all areas. I believe it's helpful resolving conflict. I'm actually doing a workshop in a couple of months which deals with that. So the 5 S's real quick. The first S is your skill set. And your skill set is, like we talked about earlier, you look at the things in your life that you've done up until this point, and you'll be amazed at how much you've already done. You can look at your resume, and for example, with skills, a lot of times, we've been doing it for so long that we don't even look at it as a skill. It's like, well, that's just who I am. Yeah. But when people look at you, like if you're good with numbers, if you're good, around the kitchen, if you're good with kids, if you're in shape, if you know how to run, all these things, a lot of people are amazed at. And so these things that are just old hat to you, that these things that you just dismiss, people look at them as like, wow, these are really great skills. Also your resume, if you have somebody look at your resume, someone who really doesn't know you, someone who doesn't really know your field, they may ask you a lot of questions about what you do that you've never even thought of, because again, you've been doing it for so long. It's like, this is just what I do. But digging into your resume, I know somebody did that for me, and I was amazed at how much other stuff that I did. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say that you are a budget analyst, right? I grew up as an accountant. So you think in terms of numbers. You think of a nerd, someone with glasses like this, just some goofy looking dude. But if you're a budget analyst, you have to talk to people about their budget. You have to let people know that, hey, this, you can't have this, or this is not in the budget. We don't have enough money. So you have to have negotiation skills if you're going to deal with people. And when you think of numbers, you don't really think of negotiating. But these are things that you pick up as you move in your craft. So there are things beneath the surface that, you can use as skills. Also hobbies, things that you've done. Maybe you want a spelling bee, maybe you want to race, maybe you want a school orchestra. These are all things that you can grow on. So accomplishments, things that you do on the side, hobbies. These are all things that go into your skill set. And you'll be amazed if you did this you probably have to do this for like a week or so. Asking people, digging into your past, looking at things you've done. you'll have a long list of skills. And then what you do with those skills is you look at your strength. You know, you look at all these skills and you figure out, okay, what jumps out? You know, what are the things that you're best at? What are the, you know, maybe you'll have 3 or 4 different ways of saying the same thing. And so that could be your starting point. And when you look at your strength, when you figure out what your strength is, you're also answering the question, where do you start? So this is where, you know, you start putting your feet to the ground, you know, boots on the ground, you start moving into this area of reinvention that you want to go into. And then the third S is the shift. This is where you make a decision to shift. I'll give you an example of that. You know, a lot of times we want to shift, but things are not bad to the point where we feel like we have to. But I know when I was, you know, looking to move, you know, my wife and I were looking to move, and we had been looking for a while to buy a house. We kept on getting outbid. Our place wasn't the worst place in the world. You know, we could still live there, but we wanted to go somewhere else. And so eventually we just started to lay low. Every once in a while we'd find something. And then the bathroom ceiling caved in. You know, we had a leak in it. And we didn't want, you know, the whole thing to fall apart while we were gone. So we decided to call the super up. Super looked at it and eventually just tore it up. It destroyed it. I mean, it was just challenging to go to the bathroom. I had to go to the gym to shower. That's motivation for you to shift, right?
Yeah.
You're in a position at that point. It's like, okay, we got to do something. So the pain of looking at that, the pain of navigating that moved me to shift. And for us, a lot of times the pain has to be so bad that we have no choice. And so the shift happens when we feel like, hey, I have to. There's no other way around it. I can no longer live like this. And then the fourth S is survey. This is where you find out who you want to serve. And sometimes you may look at a group of people that you want to serve and find out there may be another group. I know that I worked with older people originally. Well, I still do. But I went to a networking event and I realized, you know, talking to a man there, he said that, you know, a lot of these kids are going to school, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're getting jobs paying $14 an hour, you know, $14,000 a year out of school. And so he said that they need to reinvent themselves as well. So you may look one way and you find out, okay, maybe I have another area to look at. You may find out that this area may not be the area at all and that you got to move somewhere else. But, you know, you got to do your market research. You got to test things. You got to share with people, network with people. And that's where you find out really where you want to shift. Okay. Your skill set and your strengths help you to shift. But then now you got to do your research and all these things to help you to know where. And then the final S, the fifth S is your solution. And this is where you put all the S's together. And you don't really want to jump the gun. You don't want to, you know, come up with a great idea and then just go with it. You want to find out who you need to talk to, who you need to serve. And this way you'll be able to hit the mark a lot better as you reinvent yourself. So it's a process. It's something that takes time. But if you have a vision of where your life can be, it'll make it a lot easier. Because one of the things I've learned is that if you sell the vision, it's a lot easier to get there. When you focus on just all the hard work, it becomes something that, you know, you procrastinate, and it just becomes very, very difficult to do. Because again, we're so used to being this person. Now we want to shift into this person. You know, it's not something that we naturally do. It's not something that we really want to do. But, you know, again, a firing, a layoff, your ceiling in your bathroom caving in, those are things that force you to have to shift. So you got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. My final question for you today, Anthony, that we close the broadcast out, man. We kind of thinking about legacy in this response. We got husbands, fathers, brothers, and sons that are followers of our work and our men's content and everything. And I'm sure that somebody's listening today or will be on replay that are being called into a new season, but fear is really present for them.
Yeah.
What's their first step they need to take
in creating a legacy?
Moving into that new season, man, like you talked about reinvention.
Yeah.
That's what they're dealing with, because, you know, you understand, everybody else knows that the provider roles and all of the roles that are part of the playbook that or the narrative that we have to deal with every day.
Oh yeah.
Those are things that kind of they're stifling. And when it's time for you to have that reinvention process, like you laid out today, those old things kind of crop up, and it's like, wow, it's really hard to break away from that after so many years, decades even, to try to go into a place of reinvention or reframing, if you will. So with that being said, what steps should they take to kind of break past the fear and step into this new season of reinvention?
Well, there are a couple of things there. I mean, that's a pretty heavy question, and it's something that I think a lot of us men have to deal with, though. I think in terms of legacy, you definitely have to look at the vision. You have to look at where your life is going to be down the road. And the great thing about reinvention, it's a skill that you can continue to use. If you do it once, you could do it again and again. And that's the joy about it. The thing with reinvention initially, which makes it hard, again, it's something that you feel, a lot of times, like I said, people reinvent themselves because they have to, because of a firing or a layoff or an unfortunate, incident, maybe a merger, fire or whatever. But unfortunately, but many people feel in their heart that they have to, like there may not be an imminent danger, but they feel it, they feel like, okay, my life going this way is not going to get me to where I want to be. I have a legacy that I want to leave behind. I want to have something for my children, my wife, husband, and this is just not going to do it. What I'm doing now is not going to do it. So that's where you have to go into these different areas, like your skill set, find out what else you can do, find out what you can do with what you've already done, and then start to shift and, make the moves that you need to. And then, like I said, down the line, you really have to think of, okay, how am I going to get here? So it's a tough question. At first, you got to move fast because you got to do this now. But at the same time, you want your decisions to have a lasting impact. So you can't just rush into it. So it's kind of it's one of those things where you have to hurry up and wait, right? You got to get moving now. But then you also have to make sure that this move you're going to make is going to be what you want to, do for the rest of your life. Well, not even that. That's not even a good way of phrasing it, because, reinvention is really for now. You can reinvent yourself for the next 5-6 years and then move into something else. And like I said, that's the great thing about it. So just, really think about what moves you want to make for your legacy, and then start moving in that direction. It'll be a lot easier when you see the vision of what you can do and what you can be.
I love it. Thank you for jumping in here, man, and sharing such great insights, man, to our male listeners, man. I really appreciate it, man. Blessing to have you here.
All right. Thank you very much. You got it.
If this episode and Anthony's story resonate with you on any level, don't let the conversation start right here. Continue to follow his journey. He has a free 5-step masterclass. The link is in the comments and the show notes as well. You can grab that pretty easy. And of course, check out his podcast, Create Your New Normal. I guarantee you get some answers you didn't have before you press play. So check it out and keep following the Men's Roundtable Series Spotlight and our content online for more conversations just like this one. Thanks again for watching and listening. Have a fantastic day. That's Anthony, keen-yo-nezz, and I'm Mr. You. Have a good day.
Men's Roundtable Series, step inside. Real men, real faith, where the truths collide. Voices at the table where the stories get shared. Welcome to the Men's Roundtable, pull up a chair.